Jerry Lee Lewis, piano-bashing pioneer of rock and roll, dies at 87. He was nicknamed The Killer, and his hits included Whole Lotta Shakin' Goin' On and Great Balls of Fire. Jerry Lee Lewis, the flamboyant rock and roll founding father, swaggering country shouter and 2005 Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award honoree, died Friday. He was 87. Lewis died at his home in DeSoto County, Mississippi. His publicist, Zach Farnham of 117 Group, told The Hollywood Reporter. Nicknamed The Killer, Lewis was an electric performer who was still performing into his late 80s. Known for such rock standards as Whole Lotta Shakin' Goin' On, Great Balls of Fire, Baby Baby, Bye Bye, Breathless, and High School Confidential, he accumulated 10 gold records during his career, with his biggest, the 2006 All-Star Duets release Last Man Standing, selling more than 500,000 units worldwide. As a piano player, an unabashed rock star, Lewis blended rockabilly, gospel, blues and country as he feverishly pounded the higher keys with his right hand. With his long blonde hair flying around, he often stood on top of the piano, knocking over the bench and anything else that was on the stage. A forerunner of The Who and Jimi Hendrix, Lewis even set fire to his instrument, making it impossible for anyone to upstage him. "No one wanted to follow Jerry Lee," Johnny Cash once said, "not even Elvis." Elected to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in the inaugural class of 1986, Lewis was called one of the best American voices ever by his sometime collaborator, Chris Christopherson. A documentary about his life, Jerry Lee Lewis. Trouble in Mind, directed by Ethan Coen, bowed at Cannes this year. Lewis was born on September 19, 1935, in East Louisiana to poor indigent parents Elmo and Mamie Lewis. He was brought up Christian and raised on a family farm in Faraday that produced more famous people per square mile than any other American small town, he once said. Lewis taught himself to play piano by age 8 and sung gospel music in church. His two cousins, Mickey Gilley, who became a successful country singer, and Jimmy Swaggart, eventually a renowned TV evangelist, shared similar musical interests. His formative influences included listening to Grand Ole Opry's radio broadcasts that featured the likes of Jimmie Rodgers, Hank Williams, and Moon Mullican. Lewis moved to Memphis in 1956 to audition for Sam Phillips, the owner of Sun Records and the man who first recorded Elvis Presley, Johnny Cash and Carl Perkins. Phillips wasn't there when Lewis arrived, so producer Jack Clement recorded Lewis' debut single, a rockabilly version of Ray Price's Crazy Arms. Lewis went on to work at the studio as a session musician, playing piano on numerous recordings by Cash, Billy Lee Riley, Flyin' Saucers Rock and Roll, and Perkins, You Can Do No Wrong, Your True Love, among others. The $1 Million Quartet sessions at Sun, recorded by Phillips, was the result of a spontaneous jam session featuring many gospel songs involving Presley, Cash, Perkins, and Lewis. Lewis later was part of the legendary Presley tribute Class of '55 album with Cash, Perkins, and Roy Orbison. Lewis' rockabilly version of Whole Lotta Shakin' Goin' On, first recorded by Big Maybelle, hit number 1 on the country and Randy B charts and number 3 on the pop charts in 1957. "I knew it was a hit when I cut it," Lewis said. But Sam Phillips thought it was too risque. Wrote Memphis critic Robert Gordon. Jerry Lee began to show that in this new emerging genre called rock and roll, not everybody was going to stand there with a guitar. Great Balls of Fire, which also premiered in 1957, brought Jerry undeniable worldwide fame, and Breathless followed in 1958, both crashing the top 10 on the pop charts at number 2 and number 7, respectively. However, he would suffer a media backlash, led by British journalist Ray Berry, when it was revealed that Lewis had secretly made his 13-year-old cousin, Myra Gale Brown, his third wife, in December 1957. He was 22 at the time. Radio stations stopped playing his records, and Dick Clark canceled his appearances on American Bandstand. Before his marriage, venues paid him nearly $10,000 a night. The scandal lowered his asking price to a rock-bottom $250 per engagement. He was still under contract to Sun Records, though, and a subsequent recording of Ray Charles' What I Say experienced some success. His contract with Sun ended in 1963, and he went on to release other songs with Smash Records, but nothing hit the crossover peaks of those first releases, even if he did continue to do well on the country charts. His Live at the Star Club, Hamburg album in 1964 is considered one of the most spectacular live concert discs ever released. In 1968, Lewis recorded a top 10 country hit, Another Place, Another Time, followed by the #1 single, To Make Love Sweeter for You, and he had other hits including What's Made Milwaukee Famous, Has Made a Loser Out of Me, Once More with Feeling, There Must Be More to Love Than This, and Me and Bobby McGee. He recorded 39 and Holding on Elektra Records in 1981 and then signed with MCA Records. He returned to the limelight in 1989 with the movie Great Balls of Fire, starring Dennis Quaid as Lewis and Winona Ryder as Myra Gale and based on Myra Lewis' book. Lewis recorded the songs for the soundtrack. Raw concert footage was put together in the companion DVD to his Last Man Standing album, Last Man Standing Live, which became his 10th gold disc. It featured duets with Mick Jagger, Rod Stewart and Jimmy Page, among others. He teamed with Eric Clapton, Merle Haggard, Page and others on Mean Old Man in 2010 and 3 years later opened Jerry Lee Lewis Cafe and Honky Tonk on Beale Street in Memphis. He released Rock and Roll Time, his third album of the decade and first for Vanguard, in 2014. Lewis' version of the title track, originally co-written and recorded by Christofferson, featured guitarists Doyle Bramhall, John Bryan and Kenny Lovelace along with vocalists Vonda Shepard and Bernard Fowler. "This is a rock and roll record," he told Rolling Stone. "That's just the way it came out." The rest of the album was cast with many artists he inspired, including Keith Richards, Ron Wood, Neil Young, Robbie Robertson, Nils Lofgren and Shelby Lynne. It included covers of songs by Chuck Berry, Bob Dylan, Lynyrd Skynyrd, Paul Rodgers and Old Pal Cash, Folsom Prison Blues, one of 2 songs on which he played guitar. Jerry Lee Lewis. His Own Story, a biography written by Pulitzer Prize winner Rick Bragg, was published in 2015. Lewis had 6 children by 7 different wives, and his personal life was marred by several tragedies.